The Pacific Coast Highway stretched out like a black ribbon under the moonlight. Waves crashed against the cliffs below, sending spray into the cool night air. Every Friday, the same crowd gathered here. Street racers, thrill seekers, people looking for something more than their ordinary lives could offer. Sarah Rivera stood beside her midnight blue Mustang, arms crossed, watching the other racers arrive. She'd been coming here for 2 years now, 2 years without a single loss. Her record was perfect, and she intended to keep it that way. "Sarah!" Her best friend Mia jogged over, breathless. "Did you hear? Some rich guy is here tonight. First-timer, driving a Ferrari." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Great, another trust fund baby who thinks money equals skill."
"That's not all." Mia lowered her voice. "People are saying he's Brad Kingston, as in Kingston Tech, as in billionaire Brad Kingston." Sarah's stomach tightened. She'd heard of him. Everyone had. Young, successful, born into money and power, everything she despised. "Well," Sarah said, checking her car's hood one more time, "money doesn't win races. Skill does." That's when she heard it, a voice that cut through the crowd's noise like a knife through silk. "So you're the one who thinks she can beat me?" Sarah turned slowly. The man standing before her was tall, easily 6'2", sharp jawline, piercing eyes that looked almost silver in the moonlight. He wore a designer leather jacket that probably cost more than she made in 3 months. His dark hair was perfectly styled. His stance radiated confidence bordering on arrogance. Everything about him screamed wealth and privilege.
"That's me," Sarah shot back, meeting his gaze without flinching. "You got a problem with that?" His lips curved into a smirk that made her blood boil. "Brad Kingston. And yeah, I've got a problem. I don't race amateurs." The crowd around them went quiet. Sarah felt every eye on her. She stepped closer, invading his space just as he'd invaded hers. "Funny," she said, her voice steady and cold. "I don't lose to trust fund babies who probably paid someone to teach them how to drive." The crowd erupted in whistles and laughter. Brad's smirk faltered for just a second before returning, sharper than before. "All right," he said, his voice dropping lower. "You want a race? Let's make it interesting. What's your bet?" Sarah thought fast. She knew what guys like him wanted. Cash, property, status symbols. "And don't offer me cash," Brad added, as if reading her mind. "I wipe my ass with $100 bills." Sarah's anger flared white-hot. This guy was everything she hated about the world. People born into wealth who never struggled, who never had to choose between paying rent or fixing their car, who treated money like it was nothing. The words tumbled out of her mouth before she could stop them. "I'll bet myself." The crowd went silent. Mia grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. Even Brad looked surprised, his eyebrows rising. "Yourself?" he repeated slowly. Sarah's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears, but she wasn't backing down now, not in front of everyone, not in front of him. "If you win," she said clearly, making sure everyone heard, "I'll sleep with you, one night. But when I win, you donate $50,000 to the women's shelter downtown, the one on 5th Street. The crowd exploded. People shouted. Mia was shaking her arm. Someone whistled long and loud. Brad studied her face for a long moment. Sarah saw something flicker in his eyes. Surprise, yes, but also interest. Challenge. Respect, maybe. "Deal," he said finally, extending his hand. "Hope you're ready to lose, sweetheart." Sarah's cheeks burned, but she shook his hand anyway, squeezing as hard as she could. His grip was firm, his palm warm. "Hope you're ready to write that check," she countered, "and don't call me sweetheart." They held the handshake for a beat too long. Electricity seemed to crackle between their palms. Finally, Brad released her hand and walked toward his car. Sarah watched him go, her heart still racing. What had she just done? Sarah, what the hell? Mia hissed, pulling her aside. You can't bet that. This isn't funny. I'm not losing, Sarah said firmly, though her hands were shaking. I never lose, Mia. You know that. There's always a first time. And this guy, Sarah, he's dangerous. Not in a criminal way, but in a heartbreak way. Guys like him don't care about girls like us. Then it's good I won't have to find out, Sarah said, walking toward her Mustang, because I'm going to win. She slid into the driver's seat, and immediately everything else faded away. This car was her sanctuary, her pride and joy. She'd bought it as a wreck 3 years ago and rebuilt it herself in Aunt Maria's garage. Every bolt, every wire, every system. She knew this car better than she knew herself. The engine purred to life with a satisfying rumble. Sarah felt some of her nerves settle. Here, behind the wheel, she was in control. No one could help her, no one could hurt her. It was just her and the machine, working together. Through her rearview mirror, she caught sight of Brad settling into his Ferrari. The car was beautiful, she had to admit. Sleek, powerful, probably cost more than her entire neighborhood. Brad caught her eyes in the mirror. He winked. Sarah's jaw clenched. Asshole. The flagman stepped forward. A burly guy named Rico who'd been running these races for years. He held up the flag. Sarah gripped the steering wheel, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline start to build. This was it. This was what she lived for. Rico's voice boomed out. Standard rules. First one to the lighthouse and back wins. No cutting through private property. No hitting other vehicles. Everyone clear? Sarah and Brad both nodded. On my mark, Rico shouted. 3! Sarah's foot hovered over the gas pedal. 2! Her breathing slowed. Her vision narrowed. The world disappeared until there was nothing but the road ahead and the engine beneath her. 1! The flag dropped. Sarah slammed the gas pedal to the floor. The Mustang roared forward like a beast unleashed. Tires screamed against asphalt. The force pushed her back into her seat. Wind whipped through her open window, tangling her long, dark hair. She pulled ahead immediately. 1 car length. 2. The Mustang handled perfectly, responding to every tiny adjustment of the wheel. This was freedom. This was power. This was where she belonged. The ocean was a dark blur to her left, waves crashing against rocks far below. The moon hung heavy and full above, lighting their path. Sarah's speedometer climbed. 60, 70, 80. She glanced in her rearview mirror. Brad's Ferrari was right behind her, but not gaining. She had this. She was going to win. The halfway marker flew past, an old dead tree that everyone used as a reference point. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Then she heard it. A sputter. A cough from deep in the engine. No, 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 no. The Mustang's power dropped. Her speed began to decrease. Sarah pumped the gas pedal desperately. Come on, she muttered through clenched teeth. Don't do this to me. Not now. But the engine was dying. She could feel it, the power bleeding away like water through her fingers. Brad's Ferrari shot past her like a bullet from a gun. The sound of his engine was smooth, perfect, mocking. Sarah's Mustang limped forward, coughing and sputtering. She made it to the finish line in second place, coasting the last few feet as the engine gave out completely. The crowd swarmed Brad's car, people cheering, shouting. Sarah sat in her dead Mustang, chest heaving, staring at the steering wheel. She slammed her fists against it, once, twice. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! How? She'd checked everything. Every system was perfect. She'd done a full maintenance check just yesterday. This didn't make sense. A knock on her window made her jump. Brad stood there. But he wasn't smirking anymore. He looked concerned, almost worried. Sarah got out of the car slowly, her legs shaking. The crowd's noise seemed far away, muffled, like she was underwater. "Your fuel line was sabotaged," Brad said quietly, stepping closer so only she could hear him. Sarah's head snapped up. "What?" "I saw it when you drove past me. Someone cut your fuel line. Not completely, but enough that it would fail during the race." He ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely upset. "You would have won. That car, the way you handled it in that first half, you're good, really good. Better than me, probably." Sarah's throat tightened. She didn't want his pity, didn't want his sympathy. A bet was a bet.
"Doesn't matter," she said, her voice rough. "A bet's a bet. I keep my word." "Look, we don't have to. I said I keep my word." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "Give me your number." Brad hesitated for a long moment. Then he took her phone gently and typed in his number. His fingers brushed against hers. Sarah felt that electricity again, that spark that made her skin tingle. "I'll text you," she said, already walking toward where Mia was waiting by her car. She couldn't look at Brad, couldn't think about what she'd just agreed to do, couldn't process the sympathy in his eyes or the gentleness in his voice. "Sarah, wait." She stopped but didn't turn around. "What's your last name?" Brad called out. "Rivera?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Why?" "Just wanted to know who I'm thinking about tonight." Sarah's heart did something stupid and fluttery in her chest. She ignored it and kept walking, not looking back even though she could feel his eyes on her.
3 days passed. 3 long, torturous days where Sarah couldn't stop thinking about that race, about Brad's words, about the bet she'd made so recklessly. She stood in Martinez Auto Repair, the garage where she'd worked for the past 4 years. Oil stained her hands and forearms. The familiar scent of motor oil and metal filled her nose. This place was safe, normal, real, unlike what she was about to do. Her phone sat on the workbench, taunting her. She'd pulled up Brad's contact at least 50 times in the past 3 days. Each time, she'd chickened out and put the phone down. "Just do it," she muttered to herself. "Get it over with." Her fingers moved before she could overthink it anymore. Sarah, Saturday, 8 p.m., your place. She hit send and immediately wanted to throw the phone across the garage. Her heart hammered. Her palms were sweating. The response came within 30 seconds. "Brad, I'll send the address." And Sarah, "No pressure. We can just talk if you want." Just talk. Right, like that would make this any less complicated. Sarah didn't reply. Talking was dangerous. Talking meant getting to know each other. Getting to know each other meant feelings. And feelings were the last thing she needed. This was a transaction. Get it over with, move on with her life, forget Brad Kingston and his silver eyes and his concern that seemed too genuine to be real. Saturday arrived far too quickly. Sarah stood outside Brad's building in Marina del Rey at exactly 8 p.m. The address he'd given her led to a high-rise that was all glass and steel, the kind of building that screamed money, the kind of place where the doorman probably made more than she did. Her hand shook as she pressed the button for the penthouse.
"Hello?" Brad's voice came through the intercom. "It's Sarah. Come on up." The elevator ride felt like an eternity. Sarah watched the numbers climb. 20th floor, 30th floor, 40th. The doors finally opened directly into Brad's penthouse. He was waiting for her. Jeans and a simple white t-shirt, bare feet. His hair was slightly messy, like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked nervous, almost as nervous as she felt. "Hey," he said softly, "come in." Sarah stepped inside and immediately felt out of place. The penthouse was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the ocean. Moonlight spilled across marble floors. Modern furniture that looked like art pieces. Original paintings on the walls that were probably worth more than she'd make in her entire lifetime. "Want a drink?"
Brad asked, moving toward what looked like a full bar in the corner. I have wine, beer, whiskey, water, coffee, whatever you want. I want to get this over with. The words came out harsher than she intended. Brad winced, and Sarah felt a stab of guilt. Sarah, listen. He crossed the room toward her, stopping a few feet away. I don't want you to do anything you'll regret. We can call this off, right now. Just say the word, and you walk out that door, and we pretend this bet never happened. Why? The question burst out of her. Feeling guilty? Having second thoughts about the poor girl who lost? I'm not a charity case. Her voice shook with anger and fear and a dozen other emotions she couldn't name. I made a bet, I lost. Let's just do this so I can leave. Brad closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. He cupped her face gently with both hands, forcing her to look up at him. His eyes weren't cold anymore. They were warm, intense, conflicted. If we do this, he said slowly, carefully, it's because you want to, not because of some stupid bet, not because you feel obligated. I need you to tell me you want this, really want this. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Up close, his eyes weren't silver at all. They were gray, but not cold gray, storm cloud gray, complicated, deep, full of things she couldn't quite read. I want this, she whispered. Sarah, I want this, she repeated, stronger this time. And she realized with surprise that it was true. She did want this, want him, even though it terrified her. Brad kissed her. It was soft at first, gentle, testing. His lips were warm and surprisingly soft. Sarah's eyes fluttered closed. She melted into the kiss, her hands fisting in his t-shirt and pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, became something more, something hungry and desperate and real. Sarah felt like she was falling, and for once, she didn't try to catch herself. Brad lifted her effortlessly, his hands gripping her thighs. Sarah wrapped her legs around his waist instinctively. He carried her through the penthouse, their lips never separating, into a bedroom that was all windows and moonlight. He laid her down on the softest bed she'd ever felt. Silk sheets, mountains of pillows. The city lights twinkled below them like fallen stars. Tell me if you want to stop, Brad murmured against her neck, his breath hot on her skin. Anytime, just say the word. But Sarah didn't want to stop. For once in her life, she wanted to let go, to feel something other than the constant stress and struggle that defined her existence, to be vulnerable with someone, even if just for one night. His hands were gentle, patient. He took his time, like they had all the time in the world. When it hurt, he whispered apologies against her skin. When she gasped, he smiled against her lips. He made her feel precious, cherished, like she mattered. Morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows woke Sarah. For a moment she was disoriented. Silk sheets, ocean view, an unfamiliar arm wrapped around her waist. Then it all came rushing back. The race, the bet, Brad. Oh God, she'd stayed the night. Sarah carefully extracted herself from Brad's arm and slid out of bed. He stirred but didn't wake, his face peaceful in sleep. She found her clothes scattered across the floor and dressed as quietly as possible. She needed to leave before this got any more complicated than it already was. Too late for that, a voice in her head whispered. Running away? Sarah spun around. Brad was awake, propped up on one elbow, the sheet pooling at his waist. His hair was messy from sleep. His eyes were soft. He looked vulnerable in a way that made her chest tight. I have work, she said, not quite meeting his eyes. It's Sunday. I have things to do. Brad sat up fully, the sheet falling away. Sarah tried very hard not to stare at his chest, and failed. Can I see you again? he asked. Sarah's heart stopped. That wasn't part of the deal. Forget the deal. Brad stood and pulled on the jeans he'd discarded last night. I want to see you again. No bets, no pressure, no obligations. Just dinner. Or coffee. Whatever you want. This was a bad idea. Sarah knew it was a bad idea. He was rich, she was broke. They came from different worlds. This could never work. Why? She asked, instead of saying no. Brad crossed to where she stood by the door. He didn't touch her, but she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Because you're the first person who's challenged me in years, he said. Because you rebuilt that Mustang yourself, and that's incredible. Because you have this fire in you that's amazing to watch. Because when you smile, really smile, it's like the sun coming out. Sarah's carefully constructed defenses crumbled. One dinner. Brad's face lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. Yeah? One dinner, she repeated firmly, and if you're boring or awful, that's it. Deal. He was grinning now. I promise to be fascinating and wonderful. Despite herself, Sarah smiled. Don't make me regret this, Kingston. One dinner turned into 2, then 3. Then Sarah lost count. They met at dive bars where Sarah felt comfortable and fancy restaurants where Brad was at home. They ate street tacos and 5-star cuisine. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Brad loved her stories about fixing cars. He'd ask question after question, genuinely interested in how engines worked, what it felt like to rebuild something with your own hands, why she chose this career. Sarah loved how he listened, really listened, like her words actually mattered, like she mattered. Why racing? Brad asked one night at a beachside cafe. The ocean crashed nearby, and the salt air smelled like freedom. Sarah sipped her beer, considering the question. Control, she said finally. On the road, it's just me and the car. No one can help me, no one can hurt me. I decide if I win or lose. If something goes wrong, it's my fault and I can fix it. It's the only place in my life where I have complete control. You don't trust people. It wasn't a question. Sarah met his eyes. Not usually. People always want something, or they leave, or they let you down. It's easier not to trust anyone. You trust me, Brad said softly. I do. The realization surprised her. I don't know why, but I do. Brad reached across the table and laced their fingers together. His hand was warm and solid. Real. My parents divorced when I was 10, he said quietly. My dad taught me that money solves everything, that problems are just equations waiting for the right dollar amount to fix them. My mom taught me that people are transactions, that everyone wants something from you, so you might as well get something from them first. I learned not to trust either philosophy. Not to trust anyone, really. So why trust me? Sarah asked. Brad's smile was crooked. Because you didn't want my money. You wanted to beat me. He laughed. That's hot, honestly. And refreshing. And real. Sarah found herself laughing, too, the sound surprising her. When was the last time she'd laughed like this? Actually laughed, not just smiled politely. But reality had a way of intruding on happiness. 3 weeks into whatever they were doing, Sarah's phone rang at 2 a.m. She was at Brad's place, curled up in his bed. The ringing shattered the peaceful silence. Hello, she answered groggily. Sarah. Her cousin Derek's voice was strained, panicked. It's Mason. He's sick, really sick. Aunt Maria took him to the ER, but she can't afford the bills. They're talking about transferring him to County General, but the specialists are all here at Mercy. Sarah sat up immediately, her heart pounding. Mason was only 12. Sweet kid. Chronic illness that flared up randomly. This wasn't the first emergency, and it wouldn't be the last. How much? She asked. The deposit alone is $15,000. Then whatever the treatment costs on top of that. Sarah's chest felt tight.
She had maybe $300 in her savings account. I'll figure something out. Sarah, I'll handle it, Derek. Tell Aunt Maria I'll be there soon. She hung up. Brad was already awake beside her, his eyes full of concern. What's wrong? Nothing. Family stuff. I need to go. Sarah. He sat up, reaching for her hand. Tell me, please. So she did. The words tumbled out. About her parents dying in a car accident when she was 16, about Aunt Maria taking her in even though she already had 3 kids of her own and barely enough money to feed them all, about working 2 jobs through high school to help with bills, about Mason's illness that kept getting worse despite the treatments they could barely afford. I'll pay for it, Brad said immediately. No! Sarah, no! She stood, looking for her clothes. I can't. Why not? I have the money. It's nothing to me. I spend more than that on car maintenance every month. Because then I owe you. Her voice cracked. Don't you see? If you pay for this, I owe you. And I can't owe anyone anything. It makes me weak. It makes me dependent. It makes you human, Brad interrupted gently. Sarah, accepting help doesn't make you weak. It makes you smart. It makes you someone who puts their family first.
In my world, it does make me weak. Sarah pulled on her shirt. In my world, if you owe someone something, they own you. They control you. I've worked too hard to be independent to give that up now. Is that what you think I'd do? Control you? I don't know. The words came out as almost a shout. I don't know what you do because I don't really know you. We've been doing whatever this is for 3 weeks. That's nothing. Brad stood, his expression hurt. It's not nothing to me. Sarah's hand was on the doorknob. She couldn't look at him, couldn't see the pain in his eyes because it made her feel like she was drowning. I need to go, she whispered. Don't run from me, Sarah, please. She turned at the door. Brad stood in the middle of his bedroom, shirtless, hair messy, eyes pleading. God, she was falling for him, really falling. And that terrified her more than any race ever had. I'm not running, she said. I'm being smart. I'm protecting myself. Then she left before she could change her mind. Sarah picked up every extra shift she could at the garage. She worked 14-hour days, 16-hour days. She skipped meals to save money. She ignored Brad's calls and texts because hearing his voice would break her resolve. But $15,000 might as well have been $15 million. She couldn't save it fast enough. Mason needed treatment now, not in 6 months. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived at Aunt Maria's house. Sarah opened it and found a check. $15,000. Signed by Bradley Kingston. Sarah's hands shook with rage, with gratitude, with fear, with a dozen emotions she couldn't name. She stormed to his office building downtown. The address was on the check. Some high-rise in the financial district. The secretary at the front desk tried to stop her. Ma'am, you can't just... Watch me! Sarah pushed past her to the elevators. She rode up to the top floor, her anger building with each passing level. By the time the doors opened, she was practically vibrating with fury. Brad's office was at the end of a long hallway. Glass walls, expensive furniture, a view that probably cost extra. He looked up from his computer as she burst through the door. His eyes widened. Sarah, I told you no! She threw the check at him. It fluttered through the air and landed on his desk. What part of no don't you understand? Brad stood, coming around his desk. Your cousin needs help. He's 12 years old and he's sick. And I'll get the money myself. I'll figure it out. I don't need you swooping in like some white knight trying to save me. I'm not trying to save you. I'm trying to help someone He stopped abruptly. Someone you what? Sarah demanded. Someone I care about. The words hung in the air between them. Sarah felt like she couldn't breathe. Is that so hard to believe? Brad continued, his voice soft. That I care about you? That I want to help? Yes! The word exploded out of her. Yes, it's hard to believe. Because everyone leaves. Everyone takes. My parents died and left me. My ex cheated on me with my supposed best friend. My scholarship got canceled because the program lost funding. Every time I trust someone, every time I rely on someone, they disappoint me. Why would you be any different? Because I love you. Silence. Complete, total silence. Sarah stared at him. The office suddenly felt too small, too hot, too everything. You don't mean that, she whispered. I do. Brad stepped closer. I've loved you since you challenged me at that race, since you got out of your car with oil on your hands and fire in your eyes, since you told me about rebuilding your Mustang yourself, since you fought me at every turn instead of just going along with whatever I said. You're fierce and stubborn, and you don't take anyone's crap. I love you, Sarah Rivera.
Tears burned Sarah's eyes. We can't work. You know that. We're from different worlds. So what? So everything. You're you, and I'm me. Your world is penthouses and private jets and people who've never worried about money. My world is garage apartments and bus passes and choosing which bill to pay each month. We don't fit. Brad cupped her face gently, his thumbs wiping away tears she didn't realize were falling. We fit perfectly, and I don't care about any of that other stuff. I care about you. You'll realize eventually that I'm not worth the trouble. You're worth everything. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Sarah kissed him back, pouring all her fear and hope and tentative love into it. Okay, she breathed against his lips. Okay. They made rules, boundaries. Brad would help with Mason's bills, but Sarah would pay him back. Every cent. They'd keep seeing each other, but take things slow. No moving in together, no meeting families yet. Just them, figuring this out. It worked. For 3 months it worked beautifully. Sarah fell deeper every day. She couldn't help it. Brad was everything she didn't know she wanted. He respected her boundaries. He made her laugh. He challenged her to be better without making her feel inadequate. He never made her feel like she was less than him because of money or background. And the sex? Mind-blowing, didn't even begin to cover it. They fell into a rhythm. Sarah would finish her shift at the garage and head to Brad's place. They'd cook dinner together, laughing as Sarah taught him that not everything came in a box from a fancy restaurant. They'd talk for hours about their days, their dreams, their fears. Then they'd make love until the sun rose over the ocean. "Move in with me," Brad said one night, holding her close as they watched the moon rise over the water. Sarah's heart stuttered. "I can't." "Why not?" "Because Aunt Maria needs me. Because my cousins are still in high school. Because I help with rent and groceries. Because I'm not ready." Brad kissed her temple. "When you're ready, I'm here. I'll wait however long it takes." But the universe had other plans. Aunt Maria called Sarah to the house on a Tuesday afternoon. Her voice on the phone was strange, strained. "Sarah, sweetie, can you come over? We need to talk." Dread pooled in Sarah's stomach as she drove to the small house in East LA where she'd spent her teenage years. Aunt Maria was waiting on the porch, her face lined with worry. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, taking a seat beside her.
Aunt Maria's eyes were red and puffy. She'd been crying. "It's Mason," she said quietly. "The treatment isn't working. The doctors want to try something new, experimental, but insurance won't cover it." Sarah's world tilted. "How much?" $50,000. The number hit Sarah like a physical blow. 50,000. She couldn't borrow that much, couldn't save it in time. Mason needed this treatment now. "I've called everyone," Aunt Maria continued, her voice breaking. "Every relative, every friend. The church is fundraising, but we're only at 3,000 so far. The hospital wants the deposit in 2 weeks or they won't do it. And without this treatment—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Sarah hugged her aunt, feeling helpless, useless. What good was pride when her cousin's life was at stake? That night, she met Brad at his penthouse. He took one look at her face and knew something was wrong. "Talk to me," he said, pulling her into his arms.
Sarah told him everything about Mason's failing treatment, about the experimental procedure, about the impossible amount of money and the ticking clock. "I'll pay for it," Brad said immediately. "No. Sarah, please. I can't keep taking from you." Her voice rose. "Don't you see? I need to stand on my own. I need to prove that I can handle my own problems. This isn't about proving anything. This is about saving your cousin's life." "Then what do I do?" Sarah pulled away, pacing the living room. "How do I accept this money without feeling like I'm selling myself? Like I'm becoming exactly what I never wanted to be, someone dependent on a man for survival?" Brad was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What if it's not about dependence? What if it's about partnership? About letting someone who loves you help carry the weight?"
Sarah stopped pacing.
"You make it sound so simple." "It is simple. I love you. Your family matters to you, which means they matter to me. Let me help, please. Not because you owe me, not because it makes you dependent, because that's what people who love each other do." Sarah's hands shook. "If I accept, I pay you back every single cent." "Fine, whatever you need, but please let me do this." Sarah nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Mason got his surgery, the experimental treatment. The prognosis was good. Sarah worked herself to exhaustion trying to pay Brad back. She took every shift offered at the garage. She started doing side jobs on weekends. She barely slept. But something had shifted inside her. Every time she looked at Brad, she saw the money hanging between them like a ghost. $50,000, plus the $15,000 from before. $65,000 total. She felt trapped, indebted, obligated. "You're pulling away," Brad said one night. They were at his place, but Sarah hadn't touched him all evening. "I'm not." "Don't lie to me. I know you, Sarah. What's wrong?" Sarah stood, unable to sit still. She paced his living room, her mind a storm of conflicting emotions. "I can't do this anymore," she said finally. "What?" "Us. This. Whatever we're calling it." The words tasted like ash in her mouth. "I feel like I'm drowning in everything I owe you. The money, the emotions, the expectations. It's too much." Brad's face hardened. "So you're running again. That's your solution to everything, isn't it? When things get difficult, you run." "I'm being realistic." "You're being a coward." The word hit Sarah like a slap. Her eyes stung with tears she refused to shed. "Maybe I am, but at least I'm protecting myself." "From what? From being loved? From being happy? From having someone who actually gives a damn about you? From being hurt?" Her voice cracked, broke open. "Everyone I've ever loved has left me. My parents died in that accident. My ex-boyfriend cheated with my best friend. People I trusted stole from me. Everyone always leaves, Brad. Always. It's just a matter of time." Brad crossed the room in 2 long strides. He grabbed her shoulders, not roughly but firmly enough that she had to look at him. "I'm not them," he said fiercely. "I'm not your parents who died. I'm not your ex who betrayed you. I'm not anyone from your past. I'm me, and I'm not leaving." "How do I know that?" Tears streamed down her face now. "How do I know you won't wake up one day and realize I'm not enough, that I'm too damaged, too stubborn, too poor, too everything that's wrong?" Brad's expression softened. He cupped her face gently. "Because I've had enough. I've had money and cars and women who only wanted my wallet. I've had shallow relationships and meaningless encounters. You're the first real thing in my life. The first person who sees me. Not my bank account, not my last name, not what I can do for them. Just me. I'm not leaving. Ever." Sarah sobbed. All the walls she'd built around her heart came crashing down. Brad held her as she fell apart, whispering promises against her hair, promising forever, promising love, promising to stay. "I love you too," she finally whispered against his chest. "I'm so scared, but I love you so much it terrifies me." "Then trust me. Trust us, please." She looked up at him, her eyes still wet. "Okay, I'll try. I'll really try this time."
Things got better after that night. Sarah stopped fighting her feelings. She let herself be vulnerable. She let Brad in, really in, past all her defenses. She moved into his penthouse 3 months later. Brad converted one of the spare rooms into a workshop for her, complete with all the tools she could ever need. Her Mustang got its own spot in his private garage. They were happy, really, genuinely happy, until Brad's mother found out about them. Victoria Kingston showed up at Martina's Auto Repair on a Tuesday afternoon. Sarah was under a Honda Civic draining the oil when she heard expensive heels clicking across the concrete floor. "Are you Sarah Rivera?" a cold, cultured voice asked. Sarah rolled out from under the car, wiping her hands on a rag. A woman stood over her. Late 50s, impeccably dressed in a designer suit, perfectly styled blonde hair, cold blue eyes that looked like chips of ice. Everything about her screamed old money and older prejudices. "That's me," Sarah said, standing. "Can I help you?" "I'm Victoria Kingston, Brad's mother."
Sarah's stomach dropped. "He didn't mention you were coming to town? He doesn't know I'm here." Victoria looked around the garage with barely concealed distaste, her nose wrinkled slightly, as if the smell of motor oil offended her. "We need to talk." "About what?" Victoria pulled out her phone and turned it towards Sarah. The screen showed photos of a beautiful woman, perfect makeup, designer clothes, the kind of woman who belonged in Brad's world. "This is Alessandra Morano," she said. "She's a lawyer, Harvard Law, top of her class. Her family owns half of Silicon Valley. She speaks 4 languages. She sits on the board of 3 charities. This is the kind of woman my son should be with." Sarah's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "Brad can make his own choices about who he dates." "Can he?" Victoria's smile was cold. "Or has he been blinded by some trashy mechanic who saw a rich man and thought she'd hit the jackpot?" "Excuse me?"
Victoria stepped closer, invading Sarah's space. "I know girls like you. You grow up poor, struggling, resentful. Then you meet a man with money, and you see your ticket out. You trap him with sex and sob stories about your sick relatives. How much did you milk from my son? 30,000? 50? More?" Sarah's vision went red. "Get out!" "Everyone has a price, Miss Rivera. Name yours. How much will it take for you to leave my son alone? I said get out. 100,000? 200? I'll write the check right now. I'm not leaving Brad, and I'm not for sale." Victoria's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You'll regret this. I always get what I want, and what I want is you gone from my son's life, one way or another." She turned and walked out, her heels clicking sharply against the concrete. Sarah stood there shaking, with rage, with fear, with a sick feeling in her stomach that this was just the beginning.
Sarah told Brad everything that night. They sat on his balcony, overlooking the ocean, the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. "I'll talk to her," Brad said, his jaw tight with anger. "She had no right to do that. She's your mother, and you're my future. She needs to understand that. She needs to accept it." But Victoria wasn't the type to accept anything she didn't approve of. Over the next few weeks, she made Sarah's life hell.
Rumors started spreading at the garage, whispers that Sarah was sleeping her way to money, that she'd gotten pregnant on purpose to trap Brad, that she was stealing from the shop. Her boss called her into his office. "Sarah, I've been getting some complaints." "From who?"
He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Some customers are saying they don't want you working on their cars. They're saying things." "What things?" "That you're not trustworthy, that you might steal from them." "Look, I don't believe it, but I have a business to run. Maybe you should take some time off. Let this blow over." Sarah felt like she'd been punched. "You're suspending me?" "Just for a few weeks. Paid leave. Once people forget about the rumors, this is because of Brad's mother, isn't it? She's behind this." Her boss looked uncomfortable but didn't deny it. Sarah walked out of his office feeling numb. She drove to Aunt Maria's house only to find Victoria's car already parked outside. "No, no, no, no!" She ran inside. Victoria sat at the kitchen table across from Aunt Maria. A briefcase sat between them. "What are you doing here?" she demanded.
Victoria smiled. "Just having a lovely chat with your aunt about how much better Mason's life could be. I understand he'll need ongoing treatments, expensive treatments. I'm prepared to establish a medical trust fund. $500,000, enough to cover everything he'll ever need." Sarah's heart stopped. "Aunt Maria, all your aunt has to do," Victoria continued smoothly, "is help convince you that Brad isn't the right match, that you should move on. Find someone more suitable to your station in life." Aunt Maria looked torn. Sarah could see the conflict in her eyes. $500,000. Mason would never have to worry about medical bills again. "No," Aunt Maria said finally, closing the briefcase and pushing it back toward Victoria. "My niece's happiness isn't for sale. Please leave my house." Victoria's pleasant expression cracked. "You're making a mistake. All of you." "The only mistake," Aunt Maria said, standing, "is thinking we're the kind of people who can be bought. Sarah, show her out."
Sarah held the door open. Victoria gathered her things with stiff, angry movements. "This isn't over," she said quietly as she passed Sarah. "I will separate you from my son. Mark my words." The attacks continued. Someone slashed Sarah's tires, twice. Her social media accounts were flooded with hateful messages. Photos of her and Brad together appeared in gossip blogs with captions questioning what someone like him saw in someone like her. Sarah was breaking. The stress crushed her. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every day brought a new attack, a new humiliation. "Maybe your mom is right," she told Brad one night. They were in bed, but Sarah couldn't relax, couldn't stop thinking about the poison Victoria was spreading. "Maybe we're too different. Maybe this was a mistake." "Don't let her win." "I'm not letting her win. I'm being practical. She'll never accept me. She'll never stop trying to destroy what we have, and eventually," Sarah's voice broke, "eventually you'll have to choose between us." "I choose you. I'll always choose you."
But choosing wasn't enough. Not when Victoria controlled Brad's trust fund. Not when she sat on the board of his company. Not when she had the power to make his professional life a nightmare. The ultimatum came 3 weeks later. Victoria called Brad to her estate. "Choose," she said coldly, "the company and the family legacy, or that girl. Her name is Sarah, and I choose her. Then you're out. Out of the company, out of the trust fund, out of this family. I'll make sure every door in this city closes in your face. Your reputation will be destroyed. Is she really worth all that?" Brad didn't hesitate. Yes, she's worth everything. He told Sarah that night about walking away from his company, his trust fund, his inheritance,
everything. I can start over, he said. Build something new. Something that's really mine.
Sarah stared at him in horror. Brad, you can't. That's your entire life, your security, your future. My future is with you. The rest is just money and stuff. It doesn't matter. But it did matter. Sarah saw what it would cost him, saw the sacrifice he was making, and she couldn't let him do it. That night, after Brad fell asleep, Sarah packed her bags. Her hands shook as she moved through the penthouse one last time. She touched the workshop he'd built for her, the framed photo of them at the beach, the life they'd started building together.
Then she pulled out a piece of paper and wrote through her tears. Brad, I love you more than I thought I could ever love anyone. That's why I'm leaving. Not because I don't love you. Because I love you too much to watch you lose everything that matters. You'd give up your company, your family, your entire life for me. And maybe you think you'd be okay with that now. But someday, maybe a year from now, maybe 5 years, maybe 20, you'd look at me and wonder if I was worth it. You'd wonder what your life would have been like if you'd made a different choice. I can't live with that doubt hanging over us. I can't watch you grow to resent me. You deserve someone who fits into your world, someone your mother approves of, someone who doesn't cost you everything. Please don't look for me. Don't try to change my mind. This is the hardest thing I've ever done, and if I see you, I won't be strong enough to walk away again. Be happy. That's all I want. Just be happy. I'll love you forever. Sarah. She left the note on his pillow, kissed his forehead one last time, and walked out of the penthouse.
Sarah moved back into the small apartment above Aunt Maria's garage, back to her old life, back to who she was before Brad Kingston. Except she wasn't that person anymore. She'd changed, grown, fallen in love, and now she was broken. She went back to work at the garage after her suspension ended, threw herself into 18-hour days, tried not to think about Brad, tried not to wonder if he was okay. She lasted 3 days. Brad showed up at the garage on the 3rd day, looking like hell. His hair was a mess, dark circles under his eyes. He wore jeans and a t-shirt that looked slept in. "You left," he said. Not angry, just devastated. "I had to." "No, you didn't. You ran because you were scared."
Sarah set down the wrench she'd been holding. Your mother was going to destroy you. So what? Let her try. I don't need her approval. I don't need her money. I don't need any of it. Yes, you do. That's your life, Brad. Your family. Your legacy. I can't ask you to give that up. You didn't ask. I chose. There's a difference. He stepped closer. And I'd choose you again, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. You say that now. I told her to go to hell. I walked away from the trust fund, from the company, from all of it. Sarah's eyes widened in horror. What? I started my own business, custom car restoration. I figured I'd learn from the best. You, if you'll teach me. Brad, you can't just... I did. It's done. The papers are signed. I'm out. And you know what? I don't regret it. The only thing I regret is waking up and finding you gone.
Sarah's vision blurred with tears. You're insane! About you? Yeah, completely insane. He pulled out a small box from his pocket. Marry me. What? I know this is crazy. I know we've only known each other 6 months. I know I just blew up my entire life and I'm probably the worst proposal prospect in history right now. But marry me anyway. Let's build something together. Something real. Something ours. Sarah stared at the ring. It was simple, beautiful, perfect. Just like that night when everything had started. "We've only known each other 6 months," she repeated weakly. "And I've loved you for every second of those 6 months. I loved you when you challenged me to that race. I loved you when you looked at me like I was crazy for wanting to help. I loved you when you moved into the penthouse and turned that spare room into a disaster zone of car parts. I loved you this morning when I woke up alone and terrified I'd lost you forever. Your mother doesn't get a vote. This is my life, our life, and I want to spend it with you. So what do you say, Sarah Rivera? Will you marry this stubborn, impossible man who just threw away his inheritance for you?"
Sarah laughed through her tears. "You're supposed to get down on one knee." Brad dropped to one knee, right there on the oil-stained garage floor. "Sarah Rivera, will you marry me?" "You're going to regret this." "Never. I'm stubborn and difficult, and I come with a complicated family." "I know. It's part of your charm. I'll probably never fit into your world. Good thing I'm building a new world, one where you fit perfectly." Sarah looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd given up everything, who'd chosen her over money and family and status, who was kneeling in a dirty garage proposing with grease on his jeans. "Yes," she said. "Yes, you stubborn, impossible man. I'll marry you." Brad stood and kissed her, hard and desperate and full of promise. The garage workers applauded. Someone whistled. Sarah didn't care. She held on to Brad like he was the only solid thing in a spinning world. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too. Forever." They got married 3 weeks later, on the beach where they'd raced that fateful night. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Mia cried. Aunt Maria cried. Even Derek got misty-eyed. Victoria didn't come, but she sent a gift. A brief note. "I was wrong. I watched you stay with him after he gave up everything. You love him. Really love him. Not his money, not his name. Him. I'd like to get to know the woman who taught my son what real love looks like, if you'll let me. V." It was a start. A tentative one, but a start. Brad's custom car business, Kingston Restoration, took off faster than either of them expected. Word spread about the quality of their work, the attention to detail, the passion they poured into every project. Sarah worked beside him, using her mechanical genius to create automotive masterpieces. They traveled to car shows. They raced together for fun, not money. They built a life neither had dreamed possible. 2 years later, Sarah felt sick. Food poisoning, she told Brad, refusing to acknowledge what she suspected. Must have been that seafood from last night. But Mia knew better. She showed up at the shop with a pregnancy test. "Take it, now."
Sarah did. 2 pink lines appeared almost immediately. "Oh my God," she whispered, staring at the test. Brad found her sitting in the shop bathroom, test in hand, tears streaming down her face. "Is that—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Sarah nodded. "Yeah." Brad let out a whoop that probably scared customers half a block away. He lifted her carefully, spinning her around. "We're having a baby! We're actually having a baby!" Sarah laughed through her tears. "Are you ready for this? Sleepless nights and dirty diapers and all of it? With you, I'm ready for anything. Everything. All of it." 9 months later, Sarah gripped Brad's hand in the delivery room. Sweat poured down her face. Every muscle in her body screamed in protest. "One more push," the doctor encouraged. "You're almost there." "I can't," Sarah gasped. "I can't do it." "Yes, you can." Brad leaned close, his voice steady and sure. "You're the strongest person I know. You rebuilt a car engine from scratch. You beat me in that race." "I lost that race, only because someone sabotaged you. And you know what? You won the important race, the race to my heart. Now push. Our daughter wants to meet us.
Sarah pushed with everything she had left. A baby's cry filled the room, high and clear and perfect. "It's a girl," the doctor announced. Sarah sobbed. Brad cut the cord with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. They named her Luna, after the moon that had watched over their first race, the moon that had been shining that night when everything changed. 3 years later, they added Marcus to the family, a wild little boy with Sarah's determination and Brad's smile. Then came the twins, Emma and Ethan. The shop became organized chaos. Car parts mixed with toys, conference calls interrupted by diaper changes. It was messy and beautiful and perfect. Victoria became a devoted grandmother, showing up with expensive gifts and genuine affection. She and Sarah would never be best friends, but they'd found mutual respect, understanding.
7 years after that first race, Sarah stood in their expanded garage workshop. Luna, now 9 years old, helped her tighten bolts on a restored 1967 Camaro. "Mom, why do we always use a torque wrench for these?" Luna asked, her face serious with concentration. "Because precision matters," Sarah explained. "Too loose and the bolt falls out. Too tight and you strip the threads. It's all about finding the perfect balance." Brad walked in with the twins hanging off his arms and Marcus trailing behind with a toy wrench. "Family meeting," Brad announced. Everyone gathered. Sarah wiped oil from her hands, smiling at the controlled chaos of her life. "What's up?" she asked. "I was thinking," Brad said. "That race where we met, we should go back. Make it an anniversary tradition." Sarah grinned. "You want a rematch? Every year, winner gets bragging rights for the next 12 months. You're on, Kingston."
That Friday night, they stood on Pacific Coast Highway once again. The kids were with Aunt Maria. Mia and Derek watched from the sidelines, holding their own children now. Victoria had even shown up, standing next to Aunt Maria, the two women who'd raised them chatting like old friends. Sarah looked at her Mustang, lovingly restored and maintained. Brad stood beside his Ferrari, grinning at her like they were 25 again and the world was full of possibilities. "Ready to lose again, Rivera Kingston?" Brad teased. "Keep dreaming, husband." They got into their cars. The engines roared to life. The sound echoed off the cliffs, mixing with the crash of waves below. Rico, still running these races after all these years, raised the flag. "Just like old times," he shouted. "On my mark, 3, 2, 1. The flag dropped. They raced into the night, engines roaring, ocean breeze in their hair. Sarah pulled ahead, feeling that familiar rush of freedom and power. Brad caught up, matching her speed. Side by side, they pushed their cars to the limit. This time, there was no sabotage, no tricks, just two people who loved each other and loved to race, testing their skills against each other and the open road. They crossed the finish line together, a perfect tie. They got out of their cars, laughing and breathless. Brad pulled her close, kissing her under the stars and the moon that had watched over them from the beginning. "I love you," he said. "I love you too." Luna broke away from Aunt Maria and ran up, her brothers and sisters following behind. "Who won? Who won?" Sarah looked at Brad, at their 4 beautiful children, at the family and friends gathered around them, at the life they'd built from a reckless bet and impossible odds, at the business they'd created together, at the love that had survived every obstacle thrown in their path. "We both did, sweetheart," she said, picking up her daughter. "We both won." Brad wrapped his arms around them, pulling their whole family into an embrace. "Best bet I ever made." Sarah smiled, her heart full to bursting. "Mine too."
The moon shone down on them, the same moon that had witnessed a scared girl and an arrogant boy make a dangerous bet, the same moon that had watched them fall in love, the same moon that now blessed the family they'd created. Some bets are meant to be won, some are meant to be lost, and some bets change your entire life in ways you never saw coming. This was one of those.